Pain came first, then cold, then the terrible realization that Minho was moving, but not by his own power. His eyes cracked open to see thick jungle canopy sliding past above him. Bioluminescent vines glowed blue and purple in the darkness, casting strange shadows across alien leaves the size of dinner tables. Something had his arms. Something strong. Something that smelled like copper and wet stone. Minho tried to lift his head and immediately regretted it. The world spun. His skull throbbed with each heartbeat. When he managed to focus his eyes, he saw clawed hands gripping his wrists. Large hands. 4-fingered hands covered in scales that shimmered like oil on water. He was being dragged through mud and rotting leaves. His back scraped over roots and stones. His uniform was torn, exposing skin to the cold night air of whatever world this was. He could hear breathing around him. Not human breathing. This was deeper, with a rattling quality like wind through hollow bones. Minho counted. 10 of them. 10 massive figures moving through the jungle with practiced ease. They stood at least 7 feet tall, maybe 8. Their bodies were lean but powerful, built like hunting cats stretched into humanoid form. In the dim light, he could make out details. Narrow heads, multiple eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. Armor made from what looked like bone and dark metal. His mind raced, trying to remember. The ship. He had been on the ship. The Taewang. They had picked up a distress signal near an uncharted moon. Captain G1 had been cautious, but the signal was human standard. Someone needed help. They had approached carefully. Minho had been outside on the hull checking the sensor array for damage from a micrometeorite strike. He remembered the stars. He remembered the beautiful green moon below, covered in jungle. He remembered thinking how peaceful it looked. Then the world had turned white. Pain. Nothing. Now, this. One of the creatures leaned down as they dragged him. It brought its face close to his. 4 eyes studied him with an intelligence that made his blood run cold. This was no animal. This was a person. An alien person, yes, but there was thought behind those eyes. Purpose. The creature's mouth opened, revealing rows of sharp teeth. When it spoke, the words were broken and harsh, but unmistakably in human standard language. "Don't scream," it whispered, voice like gravel sliding down metal. "Makes flesh tough." Minho's stomach turned to ice. He understood perfectly. He was food. They were going to eat him, but the creature had spoken to him, had warned him. Why warn your food? Why bother speaking at all? He forced himself to stay calm. Panic would kill him faster than these hunters ever could. He was an engineer. Engineers solved problems. This was just a problem. A terrible, horrifying problem, but still a problem. Think, he told himself. Observe. Learn. The creatures moved in formation. 2 in front scouting, 6 in the middle, including the 4 dragging him and 2 carrying equipment. 2 in the rear, watching behind. Military precision. These were soldiers. Or hunters. Probably both. Their equipment was advanced. He could see energy weapons holstered at their sides. Their armor had a technological sheen despite looking organic. Small devices on their wrists glowed with soft light, probably communications or sensors. They had technology. They had language. They had organization, which meant they had a civilization. A culture. Rules could be learned. Rules could be used. The jungle around them was alive with sound. Creatures called from the canopy. Something large moved through the undergrowth to their left, and the hunters shifted formation smoothly to account for it. They knew this place. This was their territory. After what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes, the jungle opened into a clearing. Minho saw structures, buildings made from the same dark stone as the ground, covered in moss and vines. Ancient-looking but clearly maintained. Lights glowed from openings that might have been windows or doors. Other creatures moved between the buildings. More of the hunters. Dozens of them. This was a settlement, a base, maybe even a city. The hunters dragged him toward a large structure at the center of the clearing. As they passed other aliens, some stopped to look at him. He heard clicks and whistles that might have been their language. Some seemed curious. Others seemed hungry. Inside the building, torches burning with strange green flame provided light. The walls were carved with images. Hunting scenes. Hundreds of different creatures being chased, caught, killed. Trophies hung from the ceiling. Skulls of every size and shape. Some he recognized from his xenobiology training. Most he did not. None were human. That was either very good or very bad. He was not sure which. They descended stairs carved into the rock. Down and down, the air grew colder and damper. The smell of stone and earth filled his nose. Eventually, they reached a corridor lined with cells, heavy doors with small barred windows. He could hear movement behind some of them. Breathing. The shuffle of feet or claws or worse. The hunters threw him into one of the cells. He hit the ground hard, knocking the wind from his lungs. By the time he could breathe again, the door had slammed shut with a sound like a gunshot. Minho lay there in the darkness, taking inventory. His body ached everywhere, but nothing felt broken. His head wound had stopped bleeding. He still had his boots. His uniform was ruined, but still functional. They had taken his tools, his communicator, everything useful, but they had left him alive. Why? Slowly, carefully, he sat up. The cell was small, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. Stone floor, stone walls, stone ceiling, a small drain in one corner for waste, a pile of something that might have been bedding in another corner. The barred window in the door provided the only light, a faint glow from the corridor beyond. As his eyes adjusted, he noticed he was not alone. Shapes moved in the other corners of the cell. Other prisoners. He counted 3, maybe 4. Different species, different sizes, all sitting in silence. One of them spoke, voice rough and tired. The language was not one Minho knew, but the tone was clear enough. It was asking a question Minho swallowed. His throat was dry. He tried to speak, but only a croak came out. He tried again. Human, he said simply. My name is Minho. I am human. The creature in the corner made a sound that might have been laughter or might have been crying. Then it spoke again, and this time Minho heard actual words mixed with the alien sounds. Human. First human here. Welcome to Holding Ground. Welcome to Hunt. Minho closed his eyes. Hunt. They were going to hunt him, like an animal. For sport, he took a slow breath. Then another. Fear tried to swallow him, but he pushed it down. Fear was useless. Thinking was useful. He opened his eyes and began to study every inch of his cell. If they wanted to hunt him, he would make it interesting. Light came slowly to the cell. Not real sunlight, but the green glow of the torches in the corridor grew brighter as time passed. Minho had not slept. He had spent the hours feeling every inch of the walls, memorizing the cell's layout and watching his cellmates. There were 4 others with him. Each was different from the last, and each looked miserable. The closest was a massive creature with 6 limbs and gray skin like rough leather. It sat against the far wall, all 6 arms wrapped around its body. Its face was flat and broad with small black eyes that blinked slowly. It had spoken to him last night. When it noticed Minho watching, it tilted its head. I am Corvin, it said in broken standard. Trell warrior. Was warrior. Now just meat. We are not meat yet, Minho replied. While we breathe, we can fight. Corvin made that sound again, the one between laughing and crying. Fight with what? They take everything. Weapons, tools, hope. They left us our minds, Minho said. Another prisoner stirred. This one was hard to look at directly. Its body seemed to shimmer and shift like smoke given form. When it spoke, the voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Mine does not stop claws. Mine does not stop teeth. The smoke creature drifted closer. I am Whisper. My people are thought and air. We do not fight, we hide. But here there is nowhere to hide. The third prisoner was reptilian, covered in green and brown scales that blended with the stone. It had been so still that Minho had almost missed it entirely. Yellow eyes watched him with suspicion. Scorn, it hissed. Don't trust human. Humans are weak. You will die first. We'll make hunt easier for rest of us. Maybe, Minho said calmly. Or maybe I surprise you. The fourth prisoner had not moved at all. It was small and covered in matted fur curled in the corner. Minho could not tell if it was sleeping or dead. Probably better not to know. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Heavy footsteps. The hunters were coming. All the prisoners tensed. Even Scorna, who pretended not to care, pressed himself flatter against the wall, his scales shifting to match the stone even more closely. The door opened. One of the hunters stood there, holding a tray of something that might have been food. It was the same one who had whispered to him last night. Minho could tell by the pattern of scars on her arms and the way her 4 eyes focused on him with something like curiosity. She set the tray down just inside the door. The food looked like dried meat and some kind of paste. Not appetizing, but Minho's stomach was empty enough not to care. Eat, the hunter said. Hunt starts in 2 days. Need strength. What is your name? Minho asked. The hunter's eyes widened slightly. Apparently, prey did not usually ask questions. Sarah, she said after a moment. I am Sarah. Thank you for the food, Sarah. She stared at him for a long moment, then left without another word. The door slammed shut. Corvin looked at Minho like he had grown a second head. Why thank? Why talk to Hunter? Because she is a person, Minho said, reaching for the food. People can be reasoned with sometimes. He examined the food carefully, then tried a small piece. It was tough and salty, but did not taste poisonous. He swallowed and waited. When nothing bad happened, he took another piece. You're insane, Scorn hissed. Talking to prey masters like they are friends. I didn't say friends, Minho replied. But she spoke to me. She has a name. That means something. While the others ate, Minho returned to studying the cell. In the growing light, he could see more details. The walls were not perfectly smooth. There were cracks, some thin, some wider. The stones had been fitted together centuries ago, maybe longer. Time had worn them. The door was heavy metal, probably impossible to break. But the hinges were old. They would make noise when the door opened. Good to know. The drain in the corner was interesting. It was larger than it needed to be for waste. He knelt beside it and peered down. Darkness. But he could feel air moving. Ventilation. There were passages down there. Probably too small for most of them, but maybe not for Whisper. Can you change your shape? Minho asked the smoke creature. Some can be smaller. Can slip through small spaces. Why? Just wondering. Minho stood and brushed off his hands. How long have you all been here? 10 days, Corvin said. They catch me on mining station. Take me while I sleep. 4 days, Whisper said. They trap my ship in net. Could not escape. Scorn said nothing. And none of you have tried to escape? Minho asked. Where escape to? Corvin's voice was bitter. We are underground. Guards everywhere. Even if reach surface, we are on their world. Their jungle. They know every tree, every path. We know nothing. We know they like to hunt, Minho said. We know they are confident. Confidence makes people careless. You talk big for someone who just arrived, Scorn hissed. Wait until you see Arena. See other prisoners torn apart. Then we see how brave you are. Minho did not answer. He was looking at the ceiling now. Power conduits ran along it, barely visible in the dim light. Old but maintained. They carried energy from somewhere to somewhere else. Energy meant systems. Systems could be disrupted. Over the next hours, more prisoners were brought past their cell. Minho watched through the barred window. He counted guards. Memorized their patrol patterns. Listened to their language. The clicks and whistles were complex, but there were patterns. Some sounds repeated. Those were probably common words. He started to piece together meanings based on context. The hunters were discussing the upcoming hunt. They were excited. This was special somehow. Sarah returned twice more that day. Each time she brought food or water. Each time she lingered slightly, watching Minho with those 4 curious eyes. The third time, he tried speaking to her in her own language. Just a few words he thought he had figured out. Thank you and good. She froze. Then she made a sound he had not heard before, something between a purr and a laugh. You learn quick, she said in standard. Most prey just cry or beg. I'm not most prey, Minho replied. What is the sacred hunt? The others mentioned it. Sarah glanced down the corridor, checking if anyone was listening. Sacred hunt is highest honor. Only for most dangerous prey. Matriarch Kashara herself leads it. If you survive 1 full cycle of the sun, you earn freedom. Has anyone ever survived? Sarah's silence was answer enough. There's always a first time, Minho said. After she left, Corvin spoke quietly. You are either very brave or very stupid. Probably both, Minho admitted. But I'm an engineer. I solve problems. This is just a very complicated problem. This is death, Scorn said flatly. Only if we accept it. Minho turned to face them all. Listen, in 2 days they will release us into that jungle. They expect us to scatter and hide and die alone. What if we don't? What you mean? Whisper asked, form swirling with interest. I mean, we work together. We use each other's strengths. Corvin, you're strong. Whisper, you can scout and fit through small spaces. Scorna, you can camouflage. I can think and plan. Together we still die, Scorn said. Just die slower. Maybe, Minho said. Or maybe we show them that hunting humans is a very bad idea. Corvin was quiet for a long moment. Then one of his 6 hands reached out. I am already dead. Why not die fighting instead of running? I am with you, human. Whisper's form pulsed. The whisperers have saying, better to be storm than mist. I will help. Even Scorn seemed to consider it. If we do this, we do it right. No mercy. No hesitation. Agreed, Minho said. Now here's what we're going to do. He began to explain his observations. The cell's weaknesses. The patrol patterns. The power conduits. The ventilation system. Each piece was small and insignificant alone. But together they formed the beginning of a plan. It was a desperate plan. A plan built on hope and determination rather than any real advantage. But it was better than waiting to be hunted. As night fell again and the torches dimmed, Minho lay on the cold stone and smiled grimly. The hunters thought they were predators. They thought humans were weak and soft and easy to break. They had never met an engineer before. The next day began with screaming. A prisoner in a nearby cell had finally broken under the weight of fear. The sound echoed through the stone corridors, rising and falling like a siren. Guards came running. There were sounds of struggle. Then silence. Minho sat very still, listening, counting footsteps, timing responses, learning. That was Kelvin, Corvin said quietly. Good person. Gave me extra food yesterday. I'm sorry, Minho said, and meant it. Don't be sorry. Be ready? The big trail warrior flexed all 6 of his arms. Tomorrow we fight. Today we prepare. Minho nodded. He had spent the night working his restraints against a sharp stone he had found in the corner. The guards had left him with his hands bound, expecting the restraints to hold. They were strong, designed to contain prisoners far more powerful than a human. But Minho was patient. Slow friction did what strength could not. After hours of careful work, the binding on his left wrist had worn thin. Not broken yet, but close. He could feel the fibers separating strand by strand. When Sarah came with breakfast, she noticed immediately. Your wrist bleeds, she said, setting down the food. Minho looked down. His skin was raw and red where he had been working the restraint. I must have scraped it in my sleep. Sarah's 4 eyes studied him. She knew he was lying, but she said nothing. She simply left the food and departed. She suspect, Scorn hissed. We'll report you. Maybe, Minho said. Or maybe she won't. Time would tell. After eating, Minho continued his observations. He had learned much about the facility's layout by watching through the barred window. The corridor outside had 12 cells, 6 on each side. Guard posts at each end. Stairs leading up at the far end. The guards changed every few hours, rotating in patterns. Whisper had been doing reconnaissance through the drain system. The smoke creature could compress itself into spaces barely wider than a coin. It had explored the ventilation shafts mapping the underground complex. Many passages, Whisper reported in its eerie voice, leads to surface, but also to other areas, armory, guard quarters. Control room for facility. Control room. Minho's attention sharpened. What's in it? Machines, screens. The hunters watch prisoners through cameras. Also controls power, water, locks. Minho's mind raced. A control room meant computers, systems, things he understood. If they could reach it even briefly, he could cause chaos. Disable locks. Cut power. Give them an edge. But first they needed to escape this cell. He examined the door again, running his hands along the frame. The metal was solid, but the hinges were old. They were bolted to the stone with heavy screws that had rusted over time. Not much rust, but some. This place was ancient, but well-maintained. Almost everything here was functional. Almost, Minho noticed a small crack in the stone near the lower hinge. Just a hairline fracture, probably caused by centuries of the door's weight pulling on that point. It was barely visible, but it was there. Corvin, he said, how strong are you? The trail warrior looked at him. Strong enough to bend metal. Strong enough to break stone. Why? Can you put all your strength into one focused point? Yes, was trained for mining. Break through rock to reach ore. Good. Minho pointed to the crack. When the time comes, I need you to strike right there. All 6 fists, all your strength, one spot. Corvin examined the crack and made a rumbling sound of understanding. We'll shatter stone. Hinge will fail. Exactly, Scorna had been listening. Even if Dr. breaks, guards will hear. We'll come running. How we fight them? We don't, Minho said. Not directly. Whisper goes first through the vents. Reaches control room. When we break out, Whisper cuts the power. In the darkness and confusion, we move fast. Move where? Scorna demanded. Up, Minho said. The surface. We need to get out of this complex before they lock it down. Then what? We are still on their world. Still hunted. Then we adapt. We survive. We make them regret ever taking us. That afternoon, Minho put another part of his plan into motion. When Sarah brought water, he spoke to her in her own language again. He had been practicing the sounds, memorizing patterns. Sarah, I have question, he said haltingly in her tongue. She stopped, surprised. Your speech improves. How you learn so fast? Humans are good at learning, Minho replied in standard. It's how we survive. We adapt, we watch, we understand. Interesting, Sarah said. She seemed to consider something. Most prey species cannot learn our language. They lack intelligence or time. You are different. Yes, Minho agreed. We are different. That's why this hunt might not go the way your people expect. Sarah's eyes narrowed. You think you can win? No prey has ever survived sacred hunt. Matriarch Kashara is greatest hunter of our people. She has killed prey from 100 worlds. I don't need to win, Minho said carefully. I just need to not lose. There's a difference. Before Sarah could respond, another guard called to her from down the corridor. She left without another word, but Minho saw something in her expression. Doubt, curiosity, hope, he was not sure. But it was something. That evening, Whisper made another journey through the vents. This time, the smoke creature went further, exploring the upper levels. When it returned, it brought valuable information. Your crew, Whisper said. I found them. 12 cells above this level. 23 humans total. All alive. All scheduled for different hunts over next month. Minho's chest tightened. His crew was alive. Captain Jiwan, Engineer Daeun, Pilot Hajun, all of them. They were prisoners like him waiting for death. We're getting them out, he said firmly. Impossible, Scorna hissed. We have hard enough time saving ourselves. Cannot save others too. We're not leaving them, Minho said. His voice carried a steel that made even Scorn pause. Humans don't abandon each other. That's our strength. That's why we'll survive when others won't. Corvin put a massive hand on Minho's shoulder. Then we save them. All of them. Or we die trying. As night fell and the facility quieted, Minho finalized his plan. It was complex. It relied on timing, coordination, and a dozen things going right in sequence. The chances of success were maybe 1 in 10, but 1 in 10 was better than 0. He worked his restraints for another hour. Finally, with a soft snap, the left binding broke. His hand was free. He quickly hit it, keeping his wrists together so the guards would not notice. Around him, his cellmates prepared in their own ways. Corvin meditated, centering his strength. Whisper practiced compressing and expanding rapidly, building speed. Even Scorn seemed focused, his camouflage flickering through different shades as he tested his abilities. The small furry creature in the corner had still not moved. Minho crawled over to check on it. When he touched it gently, it stirred weakly. Still alive, but barely. Hey, Minho whispered. Can you hear me? One small eye opened. The creature made a sound like wind through grass. Tomorrow we break out, Minho said. I don't know what species you are or if you understand me, but if you can move, stay close to us. We'll protect you. The creature's eye closed again, but Minho thought he saw a small nod. He returned to his spot and lay down, though sleep was impossible. His mind ran through the plan over and over, looking for flaws, finding dozens. But there was no more time. No more chances to prepare. Tomorrow they would either escape or die trying. Through the barred window he could see Sarah walking past on patrol. She glanced at his cell and their eyes met for a moment. Then she continued on. Minho wondered what she was thinking. Wondered if she would help them or hunt them. Wondered if there was more to these aliens than just predators. He supposed he would find out soon enough. In the darkness, Corvin's voice rumbled quietly. Minho the human, you give us something we lost, hope. Even if tomorrow we die as warriors, not as prey. Thank you. Thank you for trusting me, Minho replied. Now get some rest. Tomorrow we show these hunters what happens when you corner creatures that refuse to give up. The hours passed slowly. Minho did not sleep. Instead, he went over every detail one final time, committing it all to memory. Guard patterns, cell layout, vent systems, Escape routes, his crew's location, everything he would need to turn prey into survivors. Everything he would need to teach an entire species of hunters that humans were something new, something they had never encountered before, something dangerous. Dawn came with drums. The sound echoed through the stone corridors, deep and rhythmic. Minho felt it in his chest before he heard it. The hunters were preparing for the sacred hunt. Guards came for them before the sun fully rose. 6 hunters, all armed, all watching the prisoners with hungry anticipation. They opened the cell door and gestured with their weapons. "Time," one of them said in broken standard. "Hunt begins." Minho stood slowly, keeping his bound hands together so they would not notice one was free. Around him, his cellmates rose as well. Even the small furry creature managed to stand, though it swayed weakly. They were herded into the corridor with prisoners from other cells. Minho counted quickly. 32 prisoners total, all different species. Some looked defiant. Most looked terrified. All of them were being pushed toward the stairs leading up. As they climbed, Minho searched the guards for Sarah. He spotted her near the back of the group. Her 4 eyes met his briefly, then looked away. No signal. No sign of help. He was on his own. They emerged into daylight at the edge of a massive jungle. The preserve stretched before them, thousands of acres of alien forest filled with creatures that wanted them dead. Behind them, the stone complex rose like a fortress, guards lining the walls. And on a raised platform stood the hunters who would chase them. There were 10, each wearing ceremonial armor that gleamed in the morning light. They carried weapons that looked ancient and modern at once, energy blades mixed with traditional spears. At the center stood the largest hunter Minho had ever seen, matriarch Kishara. She was covered in scars, each one probably from a different hunt. Her 4 eyes were cold and intelligent. When she spoke, her voice carried across the clearing without effort. "Welcome to Sacred Hunt," she said in perfect standard. "You are honored. You will be prey for greatest hunters of Velkara. Run, hide, fight if you can. In one cycle of sun, if you still live, you earn freedom. But know this." She smiled, showing teeth. "No prey has ever survived. You will die in jungle. We will take trophies. Your bones will join ancestors in Hall of Victory." A guard stepped forward holding a blade. One by one, he cut the prisoner's restraints. When he reached Minho, the guard did not notice that one binding was already broken. He simply cut the other and moved on. Minho rubbed his wrists, feeling blood flow return. He caught Corvin's eye. The big Trell warrior gave a subtle nod. Whisper drifted closer. Even Scorn positioned himself nearby. "You have 5 minutes head start," Kishara announced. "Then we release hunting beasts, then we follow. Run well, little prey, make hunt interesting." A horn blew, long and low. The prisoners scattered. Most ran straight into the jungle, disappearing into the undergrowth in seconds. Panic drove them to separate, to hide, to seek safety in solitude. Exactly what the hunters expected. Minho did not run. "Not yet. With me," he said quietly to his group. They moved together, staying low, but not rushing. Minho led them not into the dense jungle but along its edge, toward a rocky outcrop he had seen from the stairs. The terrain there was more open, less suitable for ambush. The hunters would expect them to hide in the thick forest, not expose themselves. "Where we go?" Corvin rumbled, following close behind. "Somewhere we can think," Minho replied. "Somewhere we can prepare." They reached the rocks just as the 5-minute horn sounded. Behind them, Minho heard gates opening. Snarls and howls filled the air. The hunting beasts were loose. The small furry creature collapsed against a rock, exhausted from the brief run. Minho knelt beside it. "Stay here. Rest. We'll come back for you." The creature's eye opened. It made a soft sound that might have been agreement or goodbye. Minho stood and surveyed their position. The rocks formed a natural barrier on 2 sides, with clear sight lines in most directions. There was a crack in the stone that led deeper, possibly to caves. Good for retreat if needed. Now what? Scorn asked, his scales already blending with the gray stone. We sit and wait for death? No. Minho knelt and began drawing in the dirt with a stick. We set a trap. He quickly sketched out the area, marking the rocks, the jungle edge, the clear ground between. The hunters expect prey to run and hide. They're confident. They'll move fast, tracking the obvious trails. What if one of those trails leads here? To us? Whisper's form swirled with confusion. Why bring hunters to us? Because here we have advantage. We know they're coming. We choose the ground. We decide when to strike. Minho pointed to the rocks. Corvan, you hide here. When I give signal, you create rock slide. Block their escape. He pointed to another spot. Whisper, you go through that crack. Scout ahead. Warn us when someone approaches. And me? Scorn asked. You do what you do best. Disappear. Then appear when they least expect it. For a moment, they all stared at him. Then Corvan began to laugh, that strange rumbling sound. You are insane, I like it. We die anyway. Why not die making them bleed first? They moved into position. Whisper slipped through the crack and was gone. Corvan climbed the rocks with surprising agility for someone so large. Scorn simply vanished against the stone, his camouflage perfect. Minho stayed visible, walking back toward the jungle edge. He found a young tree with flexible branches and began working. His hands moved quickly, using skills learned from survival training back on Earth. He bent branches, wedged stones, created tension. It was crude, but it would work. A simple snare trap, something humans had used for thousands of years. Then he walked back to the rocks, deliberately leaving clear footprints in the soft earth. A trail, an invitation. He had just reached cover when Whisper's voice drifted from the crack. Something comes, not hunter, beast. Minho pressed against the stone and waited. The creature that emerged from the jungle was massive, built like a bear crossed with a reptile. 6 legs, each ending in claws, a mouth full of teeth. It sniffed the air, following his scent. It found the trail, followed it toward the rocks. Then it hit the snare. The tree branch snapped up, whipping across the creature's face. It roared in pain and surprise, stumbling sideways. Before it could recover, Corvan dropped from above, all 6 fists driving into its skull. The beast fell and did not rise. First kill, Corvan said with satisfaction. For Kelvin. They did not have time to celebrate. Whisper's voice came urgently. Hunters come, 2 of them, moving fast. Minho's heart raced. This was it. The real test. 2 hunters emerged from the jungle minutes later. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never known fear. They saw the dead beast and stopped, confused. This was not normal prey behavior. One hunter approached the beast to examine it. The other scanned the rocks, suspicious. Now, Minho whispered. Corvan heaved a boulder from the top of the outcrop. It crashed down like thunder, blocking the path back to the jungle. The hunters spun, weapons drawn, but Scorn was already moving. He materialized behind the closer hunter, his claws raking across the back of its legs. The hunter fell with a cry of pain. The second hunter fired an energy weapon. The shot went wide as Whisper's form suddenly filled its vision, disorienting it. Minho ran forward, grabbed a sharp stone and drove it into the hunter's weapon arm. The weapon fell. The hunter roared and backhanded Minho, sending him flying. Pain exploded across his chest. He hit the ground hard, gasping, but it gave Corvan time to reach the fight. The trail warrior grabbed the hunter with all 6 arms and squeezed. There was a sickening crack. The hunter went limp. The wounded hunter tried to crawl away, reaching for a communication device. Scorna crushed it under his foot. Wait, Minho gasped, struggling to stand. Don't kill them, tie them up. Why show mercy? Scorn demanded. Because we're better than they think we are, Minho replied, and because prisoners can give us information. They bound the hunters with their own equipment, using methods that would hold even with their strength. Minho knelt beside the less wounded one. Tell Kashara, he said in halting Velkara language, that prey does not always run. Tell her humans are not weak. Tell her to let us go. or this gets worse. The hunter's 4 eyes stared at him with shock. Prey did not speak. Prey did not plan. Prey did not win. Minho stood. Move out. They'll track us here soon. We need to reach the next position. As they moved deeper into the preserve, Minho knew everything had changed. They had drawn blood. They had won the first encounter. The hunters would take them seriously now. Good. That was exactly what he wanted. Behind them, the bound hunters watched in disbelief as the prey walked away, alive and victorious, disappearing into the jungle they were supposed to fear. The hunt had begun, but nobody knew anymore who was predator and who was prey. Word spread fast. By midday, every hunter in the preserve knew that prey had fought back, that 2 huntresses had been defeated, that the impossible had happened. Minho and his group moved through the jungle carefully, using every trick he knew. They walked in streams to hide their scent. They covered their tracks. They moved in patterns that would confuse trackers. And they set traps, lots of traps. The jungle itself became their weapon. Minho found a ravine where water had eroded the stone over centuries. He positioned loose rocks at the top, held in place by carefully balanced branches. Anyone chasing them along the ravine floor would trigger a cascade. Near a watering hole, he created a false trail leading to soft ground that looked solid, but was actually mud deep enough to trap someone. A thin covering of leaves hid the danger. At a narrow pass between 2 hills, Corvin positioned heavy logs that could be released to roll down and block the path. Simple physics turned into a barrier. You think like predator, Scorn said with grudging respect. Not like prey. Humans have been both predator and prey for millions of years, Minho replied. We remember both. That makes us dangerous. Whisper returned from scouting ahead. Found something. Old structure. Made by hunters but abandoned. Has supplies. Might have communication equipment. Show me, Minho said. They found the structure hidden in thick vegetation. It was small, maybe a hunting blind or observation post. The door was locked but old. Corvin broke it easily. Inside they found exactly what Whisper had described. Supplies, medical equipment, food stores, and most importantly a communication panel. Minho examined it carefully. The technology was different from human systems, but the principles were the same. Power source, transmitter, receiver, he could work with this. Can you fix? Corvin asked. Maybe, but first I need to understand what frequencies they use. If I just start broadcasting, they'll triangulate our position immediately. So we wait? No, Minho smiled. We listen first, then we send a message they won't forget. He powered on the receiver and began scanning channels. Most were encrypted, but some were open. He heard hunters coordinating searches, heard reports of other prey being caught and killed, heard the frustration in their voices as they discussed the human who was making them look foolish. Then he heard something else, a voice he recognized. This is Captain Jiwan of the human ship Taewang. We are prisoners in the northern complex. If anyone receives this, please send help. Coordinates are... The transmission cut off abruptly. Minho's hands clenched into fists. His captain was alive. His crew was fighting back too. Your people? Corvin asked gently. My captain. She's trying to signal for rescue. Minho's mind raced. Which means she has access to communication equipment. Which means they're not as tightly locked down as we thought. He began working on the panel, carefully adjusting frequencies. If he could boost the signal, combine it with his captain's transmission, they might be able to reach beyond this moon. Reach someone who could help, but that would take time they did not have. A distant howl interrupted his thoughts. Hunting beasts. Close. Getting closer. We need to move. Scorna hissed. They track us. Take what you can carry, Minho said, grabbing medical supplies and ration packs. Whisper, destroy the communication panel. Don't leave them anything useful. They fled the structure minutes before hunters arrived. From a hidden position uphill, they watched 3 huntresses search the building. One of them was Sarah. She found the destroyed panel and made an angry sound. Then she did something strange. She looked directly at where they were hiding, though she could not possibly see them through the thick foliage, and she smiled. Then she spoke into her communicator. Found shelter. Empty. Prey moved north toward Canyonlands. She pointed south as she said it. She lies for us, Whisper said, surprised. Why? I don't know, Minho admitted. But I'll take it. They moved south following Sarah's false direction. The terrain grew rougher, more vertical, perfect for ambushes. As they climbed, Minho noticed the small furry creature struggling to keep up. He had almost forgotten they had brought it. Corvin noticed too and gently scooped it up with one massive hand, cradling it carefully as they climbed. "You are soft for warriors," Scorn observed. "Creature slows us down." "Then go ahead without us," Minho replied calmly. Scorny said nothing, but he did not leave either. They reached a cliff face just before sunset. From here they could see much of the preserve spread below, the jungle, the stone complex, and something Minho had not seen before, a landing pad with ships. His engineering mind immediately began cataloging details. 3 ships. 2 looked like patrol craft. 1 was larger, probably capable of interstellar travel. They were guarded, but not heavily. The hunters did not expect prisoners to get this far. "You think what I think you think?" Corvin asked. "I think that's our way out," Minho said. "But we can't leave without my crew, or the other prisoners." "Impossible," Scorn said flatly. "Cannot fight all hunters. Cannot free all prisoners. Cannot steal ship. Too many impossible things." "Humans do impossible things every day," Minho replied. "It's kind of our specialty." They made camp in a cave behind the cliff face, no fire. They ate cold rations and treated their wounds with the stolen medical supplies. The small creature finally woke fully and made sounds that might have been gratitude or might have been its name. Minho decided to call it Pip. "Tomorrow," Minho said as darkness fell, "we split up. Whisper and I go to the complex to free the prisoners. Corvin and Scorn create distractions, big ones. Draw as many hunters away from the landing pad as possible." "And then?" Corvin asked. "Then we take a ship and get off this rock." "You make it sound so simple," Scorny said. "It's not simple. It's desperate." "But desperate is better than dead." That night Minho could not sleep. His mind kept returning to the hunters they had left bound in the rocks, to Sarah's strange help, to his captain's transmission. All the pieces of a puzzle he did not fully understand yet. Why had Sarah helped them? Why had she smiled? What did she want? He was still thinking about it when Whisper drifted close. "Question," the smoke creature said. "Why you care so much? You could run, hide, maybe survive alone. Why risk for others?" "Because I'm human," Minho said simply. "We're stronger together. We take care of each other. That's not weakness. That's our greatest strength." "Strange species," Whisper said, but there was warmth in its voice. "Glad to fight beside you." Morning came too quickly. They prepared in silence. Minho checked and rechecked his makeshift weapons. Sharpened stones. Pieces of hunter equipment they had salvaged. Not much, but he would make it work. Corvin meditated, centering himself. Scorn tested his camouflage against different surfaces. Whisper practiced moving silently. Pip watched them all with bright eyes, finally showing something like energy. "Ready?" Minho asked. "Ready to die well," Corvin replied. "Is enough. Then let's make sure we live well instead." Minho looked at each of them. "Thank you, all of you, for trusting a human you just met, for believing we could fight back. Whatever happens today, you gave hope to someone who had none. That matters. A good speech," Scorn said. "Now we go before I change mind." They split into 2 groups at the cave entrance. Corvin and Scorn headed toward the jungle's dense center, where they could cause maximum chaos. Minho, Whisper, and Pip began the long descent toward the complex. As they moved, Minho saw evidence of the hunt everywhere. Tracks, blood, signs of struggle. Most of the other prisoners were probably dead by now, but some might still be alive, some might still be fighting, and all of them deserved a chance. They reached the complex's outer perimeter just as an explosion rocked the preserve. Corvin had begun his distraction. Minho could see fire rising from the jungle. Alarms blared. Hunters rushed toward the commotion. "Now," Minho whispered, "before they realize it's a trick." He ran toward the complex with Whisper flowing beside him and Pip scrambling to keep up. Toward whatever came next. Toward a desperate gamble that would either save dozens of lives or end his own. But at least he was running toward something, not away. At least he was fighting. At least he was proving that humans, even without claws or armor or natural weapons, were survivors, and survivors did not give up. Not ever. The explosion had been perfect. From his position near the complex walls, Minho could see half the hunting force rushing toward the flames in the jungle. Corvin and Scorna had done their job well. Now it was his turn. "Whisper, find the control room," Minho said quietly. "You know what to do." The smoke creature flowed through a ventilation grate and disappeared. Pip stayed close to Minho, making small anxious sounds. "I know," Minho whispered to the small creature. "This is scary. But we're scarier. Come on." They moved along the complex wall, staying in shadows. Minho had memorized the layout from his observations during his imprisonment. The cells holding his crew were 2 levels up, northeast section. He needed to reach the stairs without being seen. A guard stood at the entrance. Young, nervous, distracted by the chaos in the jungle. Minho picked up a stone and threw it across the courtyard. It clattered against the far wall. The guard turned to look. Minho ran, quiet as he could. Reached the door. The guard started to turn back. Pip jumped from Minho's shoulder and landed on the guard's helmet, shrieking. The guard yelped in surprise, batting at the small creature. Minho hit the guard in the back of the knee with a rock. The hunter fell. Before they could call for help, Minho grabbed their communication device and smashed it. Then he bound them with their own equipment, the same way they had done to the other hunters. "Sorry," Minho said. "Nothing personal." Pip scrambled back to him, chittering proudly. "Good work," Minho said, and meant it. Inside the complex, alarms still blared. Minho moved fast, following the corridors he had memorized, upstairs past empty guard posts. Everyone was either responding to the fire or watching from the walls. He reached the cell block where his crew was held. The door was locked, but he had taken the guard's access device. He pressed it to the panel. The door opened. Inside, he found chaos. His crew had heard the alarms and explosions. They were ready to fight, having fashioned weapons from broken furniture and torn metal. When they saw him, their faces went from shock to joy to determination. Captain Jiwan stepped forward. She was smaller than most humans, but commanded absolute respect. Her uniform was torn and dirty, but her eyes were sharp and alert. "Minho," she said, "you're alive, Captain. Permission to attempt a completely insane rescue operation?" She smiled. "Permission granted." "What's the plan?" "Short version. Break everyone out, steal a ship, get off this moon before they kill us." "Sounds simple enough," Engineer Daeun said dryly. She was tall and strong, with clever hands that could fix anything. "What's the hard part?" "The part where we don't die." Minho began moving down the corridor, opening cells. "Get everyone together. Anyone who can walk comes with us. Anyone who can fight gets ready to fight." They freed 23 humans and a dozen other species from nearby cells. Some were weak from days of captivity. Others were injured. But all of them had one thing in common. They wanted to survive. The lights went out. Whisper had reached the control room. Emergency lighting kicked in, dim red glow that barely illuminated the corridors. Perfect for confusion. Perfect for escape. "Move," Captain Jiwan ordered. Her voice carried command that made everyone obey instantly. "Stay together. Stay quiet. Follow Minho." They moved through the complex like shadows. Minho led them toward the landing pad using maintenance corridors that Whisper had mapped. Behind them, they could hear hunters shouting, trying to restore order. A group of guards appeared ahead, blocking the corridor. Daeun threw a piece of pipe. It struck the lead guard in the head. The humans surged forward as one unit, not with weapons but with desperation and numbers. The guards went down under the mass of bodies. "Keep moving," Minho shouted. "Don't stop." They burst out into the courtyard. The landing pad was 50 meters away. 3 ships sat waiting, but between them and escape stood hunters. Many hunters, and at their center stood Matriarch Kashara. "You are clever prey," she said, her voice calm despite the chaos. "More clever than any before. But this ends now. Surrender and I will make deaths quick. Fight and I will make them slow." "Third option," Captain Jiwan called out. "You let us go and nobody else gets hurt," Kashara laughed. "Why would I do that? I am greatest hunter of our people. I have never lost prey. I will not start with humans." "Then you'll learn something new today," Minho said, stepping forward. "You'll learn what happens when you hunt someone who hunts back." An explosion erupted from the jungle behind the complex. Another one. Corvin and Scorn were still causing havoc, drawing more hunters away. But there were still too many here. 20 hunters against 40 prisoners, most exhausted or injured. The math was not good. Then Sarah stepped forward from the hunter ranks. "Matriarch," she said loudly, "I challenge the sacred hunt." Every hunter froze. Kashara's 4 eyes fixed on Sarah with cold fury. "You challenge your own people? For prey? I challenge tradition that makes us cruel. Sarah replied. Her voice shook but held firm. These creatures are not prey. They are people. They think, they feel. They have families and dreams. We have become monsters. I will not be monster anymore. Other hunters began to murmur. Minho saw doubt in their eyes. Sarah had given voice to questions some of them had been thinking. Traitor, Kishara hissed. You abandon your people for weaklings? I abandon cruelty for honor, Sarah said. That is true strength. 3 other hunters stepped forward to stand with Sarah, then 2 more. Not many, but enough to even the odds. Kishara roared with rage. Then you all die with prey. Attack! The hunters charged. What followed was chaos. Minho grabbed a dropped weapon and fired blindly, trying to cover his people as they ran for the ships. Taeyeon fought beside him, using a metal rod like a club. Captain Jiwon directed people toward the nearest ship, getting the injured aboard first. Corvin emerged from the jungle, bellowing a war cry. All 6 of his massive arms swung like hammers, knocking hunters aside. Scorn appeared and disappeared, his camouflage perfect, striking from nowhere then vanishing again. Sarah and the rebel hunters fought against their former comrades. Minho saw her take down a hunter twice her size with pure skill. She was magnificent, but there were still too many. A hunter grabbed Minho from behind, 4 arms locked around him. He could not breathe, could not move. His vision began to darken. Then Pip was there, small but fierce, biting and clawing at the hunter's eyes. The hunter released Minho to swat at the creature. Minho grabbed a rock and drove it into the hunter's knee joint. They fell, screaming. Thanks, Pip, Minho gasped. The tide was turning. The prisoners outnumbered the loyal hunters now. More and more people reached the ships. Pilots were getting engines started, but Kishara was unstoppable. She fought through the crowd like death itself, heading straight for Captain Jiwon. The old matriarch moved with speed that belied her age. She struck down 2 humans who tried to stop her. Reached for the captain. Minho ran. Threw himself between them. Felt claws rake across his back. Pain exploded through him. He fell hard. Looked up to see Kishara standing over him. Energy blade raised for the killing blow. Then the ground shook. The entire complex trembled. The jungle had been burning for hours now. The volcanic moon had been unstable to begin with. All that heat and chaos had triggered something deep below. The landing pad cracked. A fissure opened, spewing steam and smoke. Everyone on the ships, Minho shouted with the last of his strength. Now the moon is tearing itself apart. The hunters finally understood. Their preserve was dying. Their tradition was dying. Everything was dying. Most of them ran. But Kishara stood frozen, staring at the destruction. Her entire world was crumbling. The hunts. The glory. The purpose of her people. Come with us, Minho said, struggling to stand. Blood ran down his back. Please, you don't have to die here, she looked at him. 4 eyes filled with something like sadness. I am already dead, she said quietly. My purpose is gone. My people will never be same. Better to die as hunter than live as nothing. The ground shook again, harder. A section of the complex collapsed. Sarah grabbed Minho and pulled him toward the ship. She has made her choice. We must go. They ran as the world ended around them. Reached the ship. Daeun was in the pilot seat, hands flying over controls she barely understood. But she was an engineer. She would figure it out. The last of the prisoners scrambled aboard. Corvin, Scorna, Whisper, Pip, the rebel hunters, including Sarah. Dozens of freed captives. Hold on, Daeun shouted. Never flown alien tech before. This might be rough. The ship lurched into the air just as the landing pad split completely. Minho looked out the viewport and saw Kishara standing at the edge of the fissure, watching them go. Not with hate. With something like acceptance. Then the earth swallowed her. The ship climbed fast, engines screaming. Below them, the preserve tore itself apart. Jungle burned. Mountains collapsed. The entire moon was dying, but they were alive. Minho collapsed against the wall, letting medics tend to his wounds. Around him, people cried with relief and joy. Strangers hugged. Different species celebrated together. Captain Jiwon knelt beside him. You did it. You saved us all. We did it, Minho corrected. All of us. Together. Through the viewport, he watched the doomed moon shrink behind them. Somewhere in the debris field, rescue ships were arriving. The signal Whisper had sent from the control room had reached friendly forces. They were going home. Sarah approached slowly. What happens now? To us? Minho looked at the rebel hunters. They had given up everything. Their home, their people, their purpose. Now you help us 3 months later. Minho stood on the observation deck of Gateway Station and watched ships arrive from across the sector. The station was humanity's newest diplomatic outpost. Built in neutral space where species could meet without fear, it was small but growing, a symbol of cooperation after the Sacred Hunt tragedy had shocked the galaxy. His back still hurt sometimes, especially when he moved wrong. The scars from Kashara's claws would never fully fade, but he had earned them honestly and he wore them without shame. Big day, Captain Jiwan said, joining him at the viewport. She had recovered well from their ordeal, though Minho noticed she never fully relaxed anymore, always watching, always ready. How are you feeling? Nervous, Minho admitted. Never thought I would be speaking to the Galactic Assembly. I'm just an engineer. You're the engineer who survived the impossible, Jiwan corrected. You're the human who changed everything. They want to hear from you. Through the viewport, Minho could see the assembly ship arriving. It was massive, designed to hold representatives from hundreds of species. Today they would vote on new laws regarding sentient rights and the treatment of prisoners. Laws inspired by what happened on that jungle moon. Do you think they'll listen? Minho asked. They have to, Daeun said, approaching from behind. She had been appointed as the station's chief engineer, helping design systems that could accommodate dozens of different species. Everyone watched the broadcasts. Everyone saw what happened when predators pushed prey too far. That was true. The Velkara hunters had been broadcasting the sacred hunt like they always did, expecting entertainment. Instead, the galaxy had watched humans organize, fight back, and win. They had watched Minho show mercy to defeated enemies. They had watched species cooperate across vast differences. The broadcast had changed everything. Many species who had been afraid of humans now saw them differently. Not as weak newcomers to the galactic stage, but as survivors with valuable skills. Other species who had been victims of stronger civilizations found hope in humanity's example, and the hunters themselves had faced a reckoning. Sarah's here, Pilot Hajun announced over the intercom. Bringing her delegation now. Minho felt a flutter of nerves. He had not seen Sarah since they parted ways on Gateway Station months ago. She had returned to what remained of the Velkara civilization to try and build something new from the ashes. The airlock opened. Sarah entered with a dozen other Velkara behind her. They wore simple robes instead of hunting armor. Their weapons were ceremonial only, peace-bonded and purely symbolic. Sarah approached Minho and bowed in the human style she had learned. Hello, friend Minho. It has been too long. Hello, Sarah. Minho returned the bow. How goes the work? Difficult, she admitted. Her 4 eyes showed exhaustion. Many of our people resist change. They cling to old ways, but slowly we make progress. We have closed the hunting preserves, released all prey species, began teaching new values to our young. That's amazing, Minho said sincerely. Is not enough, Sarah replied. We'll take generations to heal damage we caused, but we try. Because you showed us better way. One of the other Velkara stepped forward. He was older, scarred extensively, clearly a veteran hunter. I am Veka, he said. I fought against you in Preserve. You defeated me, spared me. I did not understand then. Now I do. Mercy is not weakness, is greatest strength. Thank you for being here, Minho said. I know this isn't easy. Nothing worthwhile is easy, Veka replied. You taught us that too. More arrivals followed throughout the day. Corvin came with a delegation from his people, now serving as an ambassador for Trell interests. His 6 arms were decorated with honor marks from his world. They had celebrated him as a hero. Whisper arrived as a cloud of swirling colors, having transformed their entire species' relationship with the galactic community. The Whisperers, once reclusive and afraid, now actively participated in diplomacy. They had learned from Minho that hiding was not the only way to survive. Even Scorn showed up, though he complained the entire time about too many people and too much talking. But Minho noticed he stood proudly beside the others, his camouflage inactive for once. Being seen, being present. And Pip, the small furry creature who had helped save Minho's life, had been returned to their people. They had sent a delegation bearing gifts and gratitude, treating Minho like he had saved their entire world. Maybe he had. As the appointed hour approached, Minho found himself in a small room backstage from the great assembly hall. Through a screen, he could see thousands of beings gathering, representatives from civilizations spanning the entire sector, all here to decide on new laws, new protections, a new future. You ready? Captain Jiwan asked, straightening his collar. No, Minho said honestly, but I'll do it anyway. That's very human of you, she said with a smile. The announcement came. A voice speaking in the common trade language echoed through the hall. We recognize Minho of Earth, survivor of the sacred hunt, representative of humanity, advocate for sentient rights. Minho walked out onto the stage. The hall was enormous, rising in tears all around him. Thousands of faces watched from every direction. Some were curious. Some were hostile. Many were hopeful. He approached the central podium and looked out at them all. For a moment, fear tried to take him. These were powerful beings, ancient civilizations, species that had been traveling the stars when humans were still learning to make fire. Who was he to speak to them? Then he remembered being dragged through the jungle, remembered the whisper in his ear about screaming and tough flesh, remembered every moment of fear and pain and desperate survival. And he remembered that he had survived. He began to speak. My name is Minho. 3 months ago, I woke up being dragged to my death. I was prey. I was food. I was nothing but entertainment for hunters who saw themselves as superior. The hall was silent, but I am human, and humans have a quality that has kept us alive through ice ages and plagues and wars and extinction events. We adapt, we cooperate, we refuse to accept death quietly. He saw some beings lean forward, interested now. On that moon, I learned something important. Being strong does not make you superior. Having claws or armor or advanced technology does not give you the right to hurt others. True strength comes from choosing mercy when you could choose cruelty. True power comes from lifting others up instead of pushing them down. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The Velkara hunted us, but they were not evil. They were trapped by tradition, by pride, by a culture that valued strength over compassion. When we fought back, we showed them a different way, and some of them chose to change. Sarah stood in the audience. She raised one hand in agreement. Today you will vote on laws to protect sentient rights, to ban hunts of intelligent species, to recognize that all beings who think and feel deserve dignity and freedom. Some of you think this is human weakness talking, that we are soft, that we lack the strength to do what is necessary. Minho's voice grew stronger. But you are wrong. Humans have survived everything the universe threw at us. We crawled out of caves and reached for the stars. We died in millions learning to fly. We lost entire civilizations to disease and rebuilt anyway. We are survivors, and we survive by helping each other, by refusing to abandon our values even when it would be easier, by choosing hope over despair. He looked directly at the beings who seemed most skeptical. You fear that mercy makes you vulnerable, that compassion makes you weak. But I am living proof that you are wrong. I won against the greatest hunters in the sector not with weapons or strength, but with cleverness and cooperation. I won because I refused to become like them. I won because I stayed human. The hall erupted in discussion. Some shouted agreement, others argued. But everyone was engaged now. Everyone was thinking. So I ask you, Minho continued, raising his voice above the noise. What kind of galaxy do you want to live in? One where the strong prey on the weak? Where might makes right and mercy is a liability? Or do you want something better? Something where different species cooperate instead of compete? Where we solve problems together instead of creating them? He paused, letting the question hang in the air. The choice is yours. But know this. Humans will fight for the second option. We will stand with any species that chooses cooperation over cruelty. We will be allies to the weak and friends to the hopeful, and we will show the galaxy that there is another way. He stepped back from the podium. For a moment, silence. Then one being started clapping. Then another. Then dozens. Hundreds. The hall filled with sounds of approval in 1,000 different forms. Clicks and whistles and roars and songs. Not everyone agreed. Minho could see beings shaking their heads or leaving in disgust. But enough agreed. Enough had been moved. The vote took hours. Species debated and discussed and argued. But when the final tally came in, it was decisive. The new sentient rights laws passed by a wide margin. Hunting of intelligent species was now illegal throughout the sector. Prisoners had guaranteed protections. Cooperation was formally encouraged over domination. It was not perfect. Laws could be broken. Some would resist. But it was a start. After the vote, Minho found himself surrounded by representatives wanting to talk. To thank him,